everyone, this is Ivonne from IvonnePlusOne, and today I have a crazy story of a ranch in Utah where everything paranormal happened, from the legends of the Navajo to any type of light in the skies, portals, anything that you can picture should be in a horror movie and happen in this place. In fact, some people call this paranormal Disneyland. It all started in 1994 when the Sherman family was looking for a ranch in Utah to raise the cattle and their family. And they found a beautiful property in the Uniton Basin that they decided to call home. This ranch was about 480 acres and it was a little rundown. It was not new. In fact, the previous family owned this ranch from the 1930s all the way to 1994. Some of the fences needed work, but the house was particularly unique in the sense that for some unknown reason, every single door had a deadbolt in and out. Like, I'm not talking about just the front door or the back door. I'm talking about every single door, as if they were trying to prevent something from coming in or from leaving the house. And in fact, all the windows were shut down as well. In the corners of the house, they have these heavy-duty chains as if they were for heavy-duty guard dogs. And for some reason, they put this crazy property clause that says, you cannot dig in the property unless you notify us. It was weird. It was like red flags everywhere. Deadbolts, you cannot dig in the property. But for the Shermans, it was the perfect price, the perfect place, and it had beautiful olive trees and cotton trees and beautiful views and enough space for all the cattle. However, they soon realized that there was something strange in this property. The very first day, as they were unpacking things from the truck, they saw something at the distance that they realized it was a huge animal, larger than anything that they have ever seen. And this animal was walking towards them like he didn't care. 3 adults and 2 kids were standing there. He was just like, hello, I'm right here. So they were a little cautious, all right? As the animal was getting closer to them, they realized it was a wolf, a huge wolf with gray fur and bright blue eyes. But it wasn't acting like a wild animal. It was more like a domesticated dog. So they were standing there to see what it did. The wolf got so close to them that Terry, which is the dad, he actually reached over and started petting him. At that point, they're all kind of relaxed, thinking that maybe this was somebody's pet. But just like that, in a freaking second, okay, the wolf turned around and he saw a little calf that had been curious about the whole situation and had poked his head through the fence. So this wolf just like jumped over and grabbed the head of the calf with his huge jaws, and he wouldn't let go. Now Terry jumped into action because he didn't want to lose one of his cattle, so he started kicking this wolf over and over and over, but the wolf didn't even flinch. It's like he didn't even notice that somebody was trying to stop him. Then Terry's dad, he grabbed a bat and he started kicking the bejesus out of him as if he was one of the characters from The Walking Dead, just hitting him over and over and over with the bat. And again, the wolf just wouldn't let go. So Terry asked, give me my gun, and he shot the wolf somewhere around the ribs, but nothing. There was no blood, no jabs, no flinch, nothing. He was still holding into the head of that little calf. And Terry shot again, and then again, and finally this gigantic wolf let go of the calf, and now he's just standing in there, right? Like assessing the situation. He will look into the calf and then look at Terry and his family and just back and forward, trying to see what his next move will be. At that point, Terry is like, give me my rifle. So he grabbed his rifle and boom, he shot at the wolf again. And the wolf backed up a little bit, but still, there was no sign of pain, no jabs, no blood, nothing. So now this like bulletproof wolf is still standing in there. So Terry shoots again and again, and finally, like a little piece of flesh falls into the floor. And then the wolf just turned around and start walking away like he was bored with the situation. And Terry tell his son, we cannot let this wolf free in the ranch because it's gonna kill our animals. So they started following him, and they walk through the trees, and every now and then they will get a peek of the wolf, and they will follow the prints he left as he walked. But eventually they lost sight of him, and they entered to a clearance, and they were following the footprints, and just like that they disappear. It's like the wolf was picked by something invisible, because there was no way that he could have gone anywhere without leaving footprints. So they return home thinking, well, we just have to keep an eye to make sure this wolf won't come back and hurt the animals. Well, a couple days went by and they didn't see this wolf anymore. So they were kind of like more relaxed. Okay, maybe that was just a one thing. But a couple weeks later, Gwen, which is the wife, she was coming back home at night after work. So she got out of the car and opened the gate. Then she closed the gate, right? Because the gate was kind of far away from the house. As soon as she got back to the car, she sees something from her peripheral view. And when she turned around, there it was. Either the same one or one very similar. This huge wolf with gray fur and bright blue eyes. Then she looked a little farther away from where this animal was, and there was another one, but this one was completely black. Well, she didn't stay there. She was like, I'm out of here, and she just took off and went inside the house. But she made a mental note to go to the tribal police the next day, because they couldn't have these wild animals running all around their ranch. So the next day, she go to the tribal police and she explained, hey, we have been seeing these huge animals. And the tribal police is saying, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Well, we saw this crazy wolf the first day, and then we saw it again. And he's like, lady, there has not been any wolf in this area for over 70 years. So great. She went home and there was nothing they can do. Apparently they didn't have any kind of crazy steroid hormone huge wolves. But they are not the only ones who have seen creatures like that. And in fact, there are all Native American legends that talk about creatures like that wolf. And the story goes that a long time ago, the Navajo and the Ute tribe, they didn't get along well at all. In fact, they were enemies. And at one point, the Utes made like a pact with the military, and they started grabbing Navajo people and sold them as slaves, and they took their land away. And it's said that the Navajo people, as a revenge, put a curse in the Utes. But this is not like, oh, you're gonna have bad luck kind of curse. This is like, we're gonna say a horrible, malevolent force to your land. And these creatures are called Skinwalkers, hence the name of this ranch, Skinwalker Ranch. Well, Skinwalkers are supposed to be this malevolent witch that in order to gain the power of a skinwalker, they had to commit the most horrible sacrifice, which is killing a loved one, like your mom or your dad or your child, which is horrible. And once they do this sacrifice, they can become a skinwalker and gain like super strength and super speed. But they're evil. It is said that if they know they are there, they might just eliminate you. And in fact, that's what people from the area, the Navajo people, do not like talking about the skinwalkers. One of the things that is said that in order for them to transform into the animal, they have to wear the skin of the animal, but that skin has to be prepped as well. So once they kill the animal and they take the skin away, they had to submit it to some kind of rituals too. And now that they put it on, now they can become this creature. And usually they're described to having like these red eyes and kind of acting kind of funny, kind of humanoid, animalistic kind of creature. Now, usually they are either a wolf or a coyote, but they could be any animal that they have the skin off. many of the Navajo people who live in that area, they claim they, at one point, they have seen a Skinwalker. And there's a story in the Beyond the Skinwalker Ranch of a lady who lived there, and she kind of tells her encounter. And she said that one night she was walking outside and she see this coyote, but this coyote is kind of walking funny, almost as if he does not know how to walk as a coyote. And she just went home, and she could hear this animal noise outside her house, and suddenly the sounds came from the outside to the inside of the house, as if this creature was inside the house. And then one of the kids started screaming like crazy, so all the family members rushed to the room where this kid was, and what they saw was horrifying. There was this creature that looked like the devil with antlers attacking this little boy, and when they entered, the creature just jumped to the attic and eventually disappeared. As you can imagine, they just packed the things and left. And in fact, the son of this lady said, "We'll never come back in here because it's too dangerous." Anyhow, the Shermans just continue their lives. But they started noticing little things in the house, like all of a sudden they can hear the doors open and sometimes slamming shut, or the windows opening and closing. And then little things started disappearing, like Gwen could be cooking and she used a spoon to mix whatever, the soup, and she put it down and she turned around to get something, and when she turned back, it will be gone. Or another day she will go take a shower and she got into the bathroom, locked the door, and when she goes out, there's no towel or no hairbrush. And these things will eventually be found somewhere else around the house days later, but places that didn't make sense, maybe locked in a drawer or in the attic or something that it didn't make any sense. One of the stories is that one day when she just went to the supermarket and she came back with a full week of groceries, and she put them away. She put the fruit and vegetables away and the boxes in the pantry, and she left the kitchen for a couple of minutes, and when she came back, everything was back in the bags on top of the counter. So she was thinking, did I just thought that I unpacked this and I didn't? Like, she thought she was kind of losing her mind, but she wouldn't say anything. And like I say, things started happening, just little things like that. Then one day, Terry just went inside the house and he was mad. And he was like, "Who took my post digger?" And Wayne was like, "What are you talking about? Me and the kids have been in the house for hours." And he's like, "I was trying to fix the freaking fence, and I went to the car to get a tool, and then I came back and my post digger was gone." This thing is huge. I mean, it's like 70 pounds. Terry, Wayne, and the kids started looking everywhere for this post digger, but they didn't find it. And days went by and things kept disappearing. Like one time it was a set of pliers that Terry was using, and like he turned around and he thought maybe he dropped them, but they were gone. And eventually he kind of gave up in the hope that he was gonna find the post digger. But he was walking and then he saw the freaking thing. His 70-pound tool was hanging 75 feet up high in a tree. At the moment, he knew his kids did not do this because that thing was heavy and that tool was very high. And they knew at the moment there is something messing up with their things and messing up with their minds. Another day, Terry's son, he was given the chore of piling up wood for the winter. So he spent like all morning getting the wood and moving it close to the house. And at one point he took a break, because I mean, that is the hard work. And he was like drinking something and getting a snack. And when he came back, the pile of wood was gone. And he was freaking out. I don't know if he was gonna get grounded or something, but he was freaking out and he started looking for it. And eventually he found the wood. It was about the length of a football field away in the opposite side of where he had put the wood originally. It was as if something was trying to make them think that they were kind of losing their marbles. Some people describe this as a poltergeist that likes to play pranks on them. As if all the weird things that were happening to them were not enough, eventually they start seeing lights in the sky too. One night, Terry was in the middle of the night taking care of his cattle because this man worked day, night, midday, every day. But anyhow, he was in the middle of the night when he sees something from his peripheral view. So when he turned around, there was something flying in the sky. It was projecting some kind of lights into the snow, like scanning the floor, like looking for something. So he was just staring at it, trying to figure it out what it was doing, when Terry moved and his bones cracked. That little sound made whatever that aircraft was stop doing what it was doing. The lights went off and it turned around and looked at Terry straight in his eyes, like he knew that Terry was there. And for a couple of seconds, it was just looking, staring at Terry, trying to figure out what to do. And then he decided, okay, this is not worth it. And the spaceship just turned around and left. Now, Gwen had her own experience with flying objects in the sky. One night, Gwen returned to her house and she was by herself because Terry was out of town and the kids were in their friend's house and she was just coming back from work. So she just closed the gate and she was driving to her house when she see this like shadow on top of her car. But it was a clear night. So she looked up and what she saw, it was an object flying on top of her car shaped like a triangle. And it was following her. It was also projecting lights into the floor. So she kind of like speed up towards the house and she was scared that this thing was gonna stop where she stopped. But as soon as she stopped at the house, that thing kept flying and then it just disappeared. So she went into the house like kind of freaking out and eventually she come down, she had dinner, and as she is washing the dishes, she sees some kind of light somewhere at the distance of her property. And it looked like an RV. And she was like, why is this RV here? How did it get here? Because the only entrance is the one that she used. And in order for that RV to be on the place it is now, it should have passed in front of the house and she didn't see it. So she sees this RV and the window of the RV is very bright, like it's very lit up, and she sees a desk and a chair. And suddenly a man just walked in front of the window and sit in the chair. She felt like this man is looking at her, like searching for her or studying her. She closed the window, closed the drapes, and she started calling Terry. Hey, there's a guy, there's a person with an RV and a property. You have to come home. He had to drive for hours to be able to get back to their house. And eventually it was kind of dark, but the next day they went to check the area where this RV was, and there was nothing but footprints that were 18 inches long. But apparently this RV object, well, it decided to pop up in the ranch another day. One night, Terry, his son, and his nephew, which is a city boy, they were just walking in the ranch because Terry said, I'm gonna tough up my nephew, I'm gonna make him a rancher. And they were just exploring the property, and it was kind of dark at night when they see the light of an RV. And at that point, Terry was kind of pissed. He was mad because why would somebody be trespassing in his property? Maybe they were hunting illegally in his property. So he's like, come on boys, we're gonna find this RV. So they start walking fast toward the RV, and it was almost as this RV kind of realized these three people were coming for it because they start moving forward. But what they notice is that instead of like, the lights bobbing as it drive in the uneven land, it was moving smoothly. So they started walking faster, trying to catch up. And as this RV kind of reaches a fence, suddenly it kind of went up and over the fence. So now they're wondering, what the heck is that? So they start running to try to catch up. And when this RV reached like a wall of trees, it just went all the way up, floating above the trees. At the moment they realized it was definitely not an RV. They described this object to be as big as a refrigerator in an oblong shape, and it had a bright light in the front and a red light in the back. And eventually it just disappeared. One night, Terry was looking at the skies and he saw orange orbs. He just tried to see what it was. So he grabbed the scope from his rifle and he looked into this light and he realized it was a portal. In the middle of this circle, the sky was light, like it was daytime, while in this side where he was, it was nighttime. So I picture like Doctor Strange, when he opens the little portal circle that you can see whatever is on the other side. Well, that's what he was seeing, like two different skies. That was not the worst part. Sometimes he will say that there was like a triangular shaped object flying out of this like orange orb, and it makes me wonder if it's the same thing that Gwen saw that day that was following her cars. But anyhow, at one point the Sherman family started talking to the news about all the crazy stuff that was happening. In this article, Terry said, and I quote, "We have seen 3 specific types of UFOs repeatedly during the past 15 months. A small box-like craft with a white light, a 40-foot long object, and a huge ship the size of several football fields. They seen one craft emit wavy red rays or light beams as it flies along. They seen other airborne lights, some of which have emerged from orange circular doorways that seem to appear in mid-air." After the news were around, a lot of people started going to the ranch because who wouldn't want to know what the hell is happening in there? And eventually, a guy came. He asked if he could meditate in the land because, after hearing about this, he thought this place was kind of maybe a spiritual or a portal kind of land. Terry and his son agreed. So they took this man, like they walked to a clearance, and this man was sitting in the floor. And he closed his eyes and he's meditating, trying to connect his spirit to this world, maybe open a portal to heaven or hell, who knows. But Terry and his son, they see something moving behind him in between the trees, like moving from tree to tree. They couldn't figure out what it was. And suddenly, whatever it was just run right in front of this man, and he was standing right in front of him. But this man was so deep in his meditation, he didn't even realize what was happening. Terry said we couldn't see exactly what it was because it was distorted, like when the heat hits something and you see like wavy lines, that's how it looked. And then suddenly it roared. It was so loud. It sounded like between a combination of a bear and a lion. And finally, the dude that was meditating, he snapped out of it and he stood up and started running towards Terry. And whatever that was, he went back to the forest. Well, apparently that night, Terry and his son were watching TV when they saw the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or however you say his name. And when they saw this alien creature, they say it's exactly like the thing that they saw that day, something that could camouflage. At this point, I don't even know why they were still there, but they were. And then they started seeing some crop circles in the dirt. And he will describe like being about 3 feet long, and it was almost like he said it's like a cookie cutter that just went down and grabbed a piece of dirt and just took off. And then Carol started disappearing. Like one time, it was a stormy night, it was snowing, and it was like somewhere around 30 degrees. Terry was going around to make sure all the cattle was fine, and he counted all of them and he was missing one of them. So he started looking everywhere for it. Maybe it was injured or maybe it was lost. So he was looking, and eventually he found the footprints. What he noticed though is that these footprints looked like this cow was running, which was very unusual because of the weather that was happening, almost as if it was trying to escape from a predator. So he started following the footprints, and suddenly the footprints were gone. The cow was never found ever again, and that was not the only cow that just disappeared and vanished without a trace. There were several others. Yet there was other cows that were found mutilated. They were found dead, but in such a bizarre ways. Like one day, Terry's son, he was chasing a little calf when he sees another one like in the fence, and he noticed it looked terrified, almost as if it was trying to escape something that was going to harm it. He finished grabbing the little one that he was chasing, and it took him about 20 minutes. But when he came back, what he found was horrific. I mean, this little calf was laying on the floor. His insides were carved out. But weirder was that there was no blood. So he called his dad, and this is how they describe it. There was no blood. The cut was flawless. It looked like a 6-inch diameter, perfectly circular saw with a sucking device had jammed into the hefty rear and effortlessly sucked out the entire inside of the animal without any blood loss. That was not the only animal that were found dead with the organ missing, but it was like a surgery, like something had moved whatever they took precisely, and there was no sign of struggle, there was no blood, and there was no clues of how that happened. At the end, the Shermans ended up losing, like either because they disappeared or because they were found mutilated, 14 animals in their farm. But that was not what scared them away. In fact, what scared them away was a little blue orb. And the first time they saw this blue orb, Terry and Wynn, they were around the ranch when they saw this blue orb floating around the head of one of their horses. It was kind of flying around. And now the horse was not in distress. It was kind of moving his head like trying to shake a fly or something. But it wasn't in distress. So they were like looking at whatever it was when it stopped, and now it rushed towards them. And as it got closer, they can see this ball was about 2 or 3 times the size of a baseball. It had some kind of blue liquid inside that was bubbling like a Harry Potter potion. And the worst part is when it got closer, they had this terrifying sense of dread. At this point, Wayne freaked out and she just raised her flashlight and pointed to this blue orb, and it took off like it was scared of the light. And they were like, what the hell is that? Well, another day, Terry saw these freaking orbs again, and this time he was by himself with his 3 dogs. And when they saw the orbs, the dogs took off and started chasing it. And in fact, they were trying to kind of grab it, and the orb was like moving around, preventing the dogs from actually grabbing it. And eventually it took off, and the dogs followed. So the dogs were chasing this orb, and suddenly there were these horrible yelps of pain from the dogs, and then eerie silent. At this point, Terry knew there were too many crazy things happening, so he decided it was not safe for him to go after the dogs until morning. The next day, he went to where he thought the dogs were, and he could smell like burned flesh. And then he found 3 perfect circles on the floor with black greasy mess. The dogs were never found. Now for them, that was it. I mean, at this point, it was really getting close. They have been losing cattle, which is how they made the money, but now their dogs are gone, and now they were afraid that something could happen to themselves. So they decided to sell the ranch. But who the heck was going to buy the ranch after they have gone to the news and people knew what was happening in there? Well, there was a crazy man interested in the paranormal. His name is Bigelow, and he decided he wanted to buy it. Anyhow, what do you guys think about the Skinwalker Ranch? Which is kind of peculiar because it's called Skinwalker Ranch, and they have seen these creatures like the wolf and the predator-like creature, and they will see more in the next episodes, which are interesting too. But most of the things are like outer space phenomena, like UFOs, which is fascinating. So let me know what you think at the comments. If you have any crazy UFO stories, or if you have any ghost stories or poltergeist story, let me know at IvonnePlusOne@gmail.com. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye.